All right. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Hope everyone is well. Hope you had a great weekend. And hope that it's going to be a good week on the charts this week. But we're really glad that you could join us. Karibuni sana. For the sake of guys who are new here, welcome to the Afriforex Daily Analysis. We do this every morning, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. in the morning. So feel free to join us live on YouTube. And also remember to give us a like and a subscribe, and also remember to turn on the bell notification so that you get notified anytime we do actually end up going live. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. We also do have the rest of the team here. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat box. The team will get back to you. But I will also try and see whether I can look at the questions in the chat box, but towards the very tail end of this session. But you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the session does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list. We'll compare what we had on Friday with what we do have today. So you can see the watch list on Friday, the 17th. This is what it was looking like. Today, there's only been one change. So we do have the Great British Pound joining the sell side of things. So it's basically the yen and the euro versus all the other currency pairs on the sell side. And of course, you can see the commodities and the indices also still do end up remaining on the buy side. So we're going to start off by looking at the GBPs that we did have on Friday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. Friday morning price was somewhere here. We're expecting maybe to get the market coming back in within this region here for us to look for buys. And you can see that the market did actually come back in within here, although it wasn't the clearest of opportunities in terms of looking for the buying opportunities. So you can see that the market came down aggressively, pulled back up to the upside. Unfortunately, there wasn't much of a hold within this region here. But it does seem like the buyers were somewhere down within here and the sellers were sitting somewhere high above within this region here, because you can see that there was also another reaction of this area right here. But this was during the US session. So this one could continue moving sideways today. So unfortunately, because of that, we'll be walking away from it today. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas right there. So Friday morning, price was somewhere here. Remember, I had pointed out in case the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there would be no trade for us. And you can see that the market broke to the downside and kind of held to the downside for pretty much the whole of the London session. The US session, the market came back to the upside. Technically, it does seem to be holding within here, but if you look at the reaction of how the buyers are pushing up, this might not be the big boys, which means that the big boys might actually not be interested in looking for buys on that one. So that means that also us as retail traders, we're also not going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities as well. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. Similar situation, we're watching out for buys. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Friday morning price was somewhere here. I had pointed out that in case the market comes back in within here, we possibly could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities, but you can see that the sellers came down quite aggressively. The market came back in within this region here. But if you compare how the buyers came up and how the sellers had come down, definitely seems that the sellers were quite more, much stronger, let me put it that way, than the buyers. And you can see that the market really struggled to hold above within here. We just couldn't get past this region. You can see that the sellers kept shooting down the market off this area. Even during the US session, you can see that the market came back into the downside, and as much as the buyers had come up aggressive. So that one could also be moving sideways today. So unfortunately, not also a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can get any trades in today. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, on Friday, also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. So on Friday morning, so you can see that the price was somewhere here. Similar situation with more or less all the GBP pairs. There were some GBP news events that came out at 10. The news were a bit mixed. But generally, you can see that the GBPs did actually push to the downside quite aggressively across the board. So you can see that the buyers we're really struggling within this region right here. But you can see that much later on during the US session, the market started to move to the upside. But this one seems to be going. We can't really give much credit to the GBP in terms of the market moving up. That one has something to do with the weakness on the Canadian dollar. Because if you look at the rest of the GBP pairs, they're more or less moving sideways, but that one is going up. So that should automatically tell us that the Canadian dollar must definitely be weaker than the Great British Pound. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs for review, we do have the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right here that I had pointed out, also some illustrations of what maybe potentially we could have expected to possibly try and see whether we could have gotten buys. So I had pointed out that looking for the buys within here was not a good idea, because it was much better to wait for price to break this region to the upside, or maybe come back in somewhere as close as possible within here. And you can see that the sellers pushed the market to the downside, and price technically did come back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. But you can see that the market really struggled to push to the upside of this area. And you can see that today, market is still holding within here. So also this one, not really a currency pair we will be watching out for today, because you could find that the market could be moving sideways, and we don't really want to end up signing up for that type of nonsense. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs for review. So remember, today being a Monday, we don't really end up looking at screenshots, but remember, you can send in screenshots. If you do get some good or bad trades today, just make sure that you do send them in to us. Our contact details should be in the video description. And at least we'll give you the much needed shout out that you need. And of course, if we do see something that you can end up correcting, then we'll definitely also give you that much needed advice. So you can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details are there, and also feel free to reach out to us, and we'll see how best we can end up helping you in case you do need any help. So moving on into matters today. So you can see the watch list for today. For the sake of guys who are joining us a bit late, this is what we're going to be watching out for. So we're going to start off by mixing and matching up the yen with everything on the sell side. Then we'll move on to the euro. Then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities like we always do. So we're going to start off with the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, also a currency pair that we did have, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas, or more or less four, because there was also this region right here that I had pointed out. So Friday morning, price was somewhere here. I had pointed out that hopefully if the market comes back in somewhere as close as possible within here, we could look for sells. And I did advise that it would have been much better to look for the sells within this region if the market broke to the downside of this area right here, because I had pointed out that maybe you could find the market just fooling around within here, and you don't really want to sign up for that. And you can see that the market did come down, attempted to go lower, but unfortunately just couldn't breach this region to the downside. So you can see that there was a probe that did actually end up happening within that region. So for this one for today, we're still going to be back at it. We will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one still. The levels are the same, because you can see that the market has not really moved far and beyond the regions that I had pointed out. So you can see that the buyers pushed the market to the upside. The sellers are coming in slow. There's a possibility you could find the market maybe bouncing off this region right here to the upside, and you could find that maybe these buyers who had pushed the market up might actually end up attempting, to break the previous record, which stands somewhere within this region. And I think if they can go higher than that, I think that's when maybe we could find the market possibly giving us a good selling opportunity. So just watch out for that. But also remember that in case the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, you still have this support region that you'll have to watch out for. Maybe if that support region had been a bit much lower, and we could possibly end up having a bit more room to play with within here, then I guess the sales within here could have been more or less valid. But right now, I think it might still be better to actually end up waiting to breach this region to the downside. If we end up doing that, then I guess the next best selling opportunities could actually be down here. So the plan on this one is more or less still the same as what we did end up having on Friday. So make sure that you watch out for that. Let's see if the market can actually get all the way to the top, because remember that in case the sellers do need that price, or the big boys rather, if they do need that price, then at least we should also be ready for that as well. So the next one, this is the Swiss franc against Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, also illustrations of what to expect. Friday morning, price was somewhere here. I had pointed out that it would have been best to wait for price to come back in somewhere as close as possible within there. You can see that the market bounced off this region. This was during the London session. Price came back up somewhere as close as possible within there. The market came down. You can see that this region is still giving issues to the sellers, and there are sellers somewhere within here, which tells us that if you're going to be looking for some selling opportunities, you're still better off looking for your sell somewhere as close as possible within here, because you can see that the market is in some sort of range, not really the best looking range. It could be a range, could be some sort of a channel to the downside, but generally you can see that the sellers are sitting somewhere within here. So let's see if we can get those buyers pushing the market up. At least if we can get the price coming back in somewhere within this region here, and we get some sort of a slowdown, the buyers start to see signs that the big boy sellers are starting to come in, then at least we could possibly try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So do watch out for that. But also remember the region at the top, in case the market comes or finds its way there, then at least we should also be ready for that. But also remembering that that's going to be the last day where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. If the market breaks above the red SNR, then at that point in time, we will end up having to fall back in terms of looking for selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the US dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, also illustrations of what to expect. So Friday morning price was here. I had pointed out that it wasn't such a good idea to look for yourselves, especially when price was holding above here. Remember that I had pointed out that there was this sort of probe that did seem to have happened within here. We wanted to see if price was going to come back to the downside of this region, then maybe hold before we look for the sells. But you can see that during the London session, the market actually bounced off this region to the upside and actually came all the way high up within this area right here. So the sell didn't quite happen on Friday, but it does seem like the market has set itself up. Sometimes the markets take a bit more time, to set themselves up. So you can see that the buyers they did their thing. They pushed the market all the way till within this region, tempted to go up higher. The sellers, you can see that they've started to come in, and I guess it's these sellers who are sitting somewhere within here. And you can see that once the market has been thrown back to where the buyers are, which is somewhere within this region here, you can see that the buyers are now struggling to push the market up. So we'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening. But I think we could potentially end up getting a really good setup or a good trade, let me put it that way, somewhere within this region here, because the setup already looks like it's already happening. So we just need to see what happens when the market comes back in within this region for some sort of a retest. Could end up getting a really good sell of this region right here to come back down to within this area. And I guess this is also going to be quite a handful of pips. So looking at about 80 pips, which means that we could possibly end up getting some very good risk to reward on this particular trade. But we'll just have to wait, just be a bit more patient. Let's see what happens within here, especially if we do see signs that the buyers are attempting to go up higher, but they can't. Then I guess it might actually end up being a good time to look for the sells. But at least this probe within here does at least end up telling us that these sellers who are sitting within there are definitely alive and doing well. So we'll just have to wait and see if they can actually end up giving us, the push to the downside. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is also a currency pair we had on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Also an illustration of what to expect. There was also this region that I did end up adding in, because I had pointed out that hopefully we get the market coming back in somewhere within here. Even if it doesn't get there, then at least we try and see whether we could get some sells. And you can see that in the morning price was somewhere here. It wasn't a good idea to look for the sells down within here. And you clearly can't see why now, because you can see the reaction that did actually end up happening of this region to the upside. The market pushed to the upside quite aggressively, came in within here, but there wasn't really much to tell us to look for the sells within here. The market just turned around, but at least you can see that the sellers within there did actually end up getting the job done. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. The market hasn't really gone far and beyond the areas that we're watching out for on Friday. So the story is still the same. So we will be waiting to see what happens. Hopefully, maybe we could get the market coming back in within here. This is still a level of interest, but generally we want to get the sells maybe somewhere as close as possible within here. So we could possibly end up getting the market. I mean, if it doesn't come all the way till within there, we still could watch out for this region. It's still definitely an area of interest for us. But generally, we want to get the sells as close as possible within here, or in case the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and we get the hold. Remember that after the breach, it's always important to actually end up waiting for the hold. If you do end up jumping the gun, and you jump in on the sells when the market breaks out, then that makes you a breakout trader. And you easily could find that the market could easily end up doing some sort of a probe within here. And you might easily end up hitting your sells down here, only for the market to actually end up coming back to the upside. And I don't think you'll really be very amused about that. So just make sure that you do actually end up waiting. If you do get the hold, then at least you can end up looking for the selling opportunities. Also, remember the region at the top. It's a bit of a long shot, but in case the market finds its way there, then at least you should also be ready for that. But also remembering that at that aggressive area, the red SNR, that's exactly where we're going to be calling it quits in terms of sales in case the market breaks to the upside and can't come back to the downside. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here. And we're expecting maybe the market to come back in within this area here, or maybe break to the downside and actually hold for us to look for the selling opportunities. Unfortunately, that did not happen. But at least one thing that I had definitely pointed out is that looking for the selling opportunities within this region of support was not such a good idea. You can see that the buyers did react. This was during the London session, but during the US session, you can see the reaction that did actually end up happening off this region to the upside. So for this one, the levels are the same. The story is the same. The buyers did end up coming in aggressive. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get them slowing down. If they do end up slowing down, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some sort of a selling opportunity. You can see that there's been some sort of slowdown that's already happening within here. You can see that the first time they came up aggressive, the sellers pushed to the downside. Then off this region, somewhere within here, you can see that the buyers are struggling to push to the upside, which is good. But remember that's only one part of the coin. The other side is that we definitely do need to see signs of aggression. We need to see that the sellers are coming in quite aggressive compared to the previous time. And after that, hopefully we do get a struggle still happening of the sellers. We potentially could end up getting a really good selling opportunity. So this one, we just have to be a bit patient. You never know if these buyers, in as much as they look like they're struggling within here, they can definitely end up picking up steam, because if they do end up picking out these sellers and the market goes to the upside of this region here, you definitely could find the market coming back in all the way to within this area. If that does end up happening, then I guess we'll just have to end up waiting to see whether we can get some selling opportunities happening within here. Maybe the London big boys might need to push a bit higher. And you could find that maybe during the US session, from around 5:30, price might be somewhere within this region, and that could potentially end up giving us a really good sell of that area. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But I think generally the yens on Friday, they didn't really move much. Maybe it could be something to do with the fact that they had already moved quite a lot, especially throughout the week. So maybe within this region right here, many people are already trying to see whether they can get sales. And maybe that's the reason why you're finding these reactions of the buyers. Some people definitely need to end up getting stopped out. Once they start looking for trades in the opposite direction, then definitely that's when the sellers are definitely going to be jumping back in. So let's just hope that that does end up happening today. So last but not least, for the yens, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we didn't really have it. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list. But you can't see something similar with the rest of the yens. So you can't see that on Friday, this one was more or less ranging. But throughout the week, you can't see that the market was actually coming down. Definitely on Friday, guys were throwing some sort of a confusion within this region right here. But at least one thing we can't see for sure is the fact that the market is ranging. And we definitely know that in a range, the best area to look for the selling opportunities is at the top of the range. So right now, the market is back at the top of the range, which is good. But we just generally need to see a slowdown of the sellers, of the buyers. If we do end up seeing that, maybe the market might need to tap in within that region, potentially end up getting pushed to the downside aggressively, and we see a struggle of the buyers. then we could try and see whether we could get some good selling opportunities. And at least if we do get the sell somewhere within there coming down, that's almost about 85 pips, which is not too bad. So let's watch out for that. But also remember the region at the top, in case the buyers don't slow down and they do actually end up taking out these sellers, and these sellers have nothing to say about it, then I guess we'll potentially end up getting the market coming back in all the way to within that region at the top. But remember, that region at the top is definitely going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of the yen pairs. So we're going to move on to the euro pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we're going to start off with the euro against Australian dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Also illustrations of what to expect. So Friday morning price was here. I wanted to see if price could actually break above this region to the upside and actually hold for us to look for the buys. There was a small hold after this sort of probe that did end up happening of this region right here, but maybe you did need to look at this on a smaller time frame. It's not very visible on the 15-minute time frame, but you can see that the market went up higher, attempted to break this region to the upside, but unfortunately we just couldn't get the hold, and you can see that the sellers did actually push the market to the downside quite aggressively. So for this one for today, the story is the same, in as much as the markets did actually end up moving quite a lot on Friday to the upside and to the downside, but the market is still being contained within these three areas still. So the story does end up remaining the same. It seems like the market has done a full cycle, because on Friday morning, we're watching out for price more or less within the same region where it is. So let's wait and see. If we can't get the market breaking above this region to the upside, we get the market still holding within here, especially after we do see attempts of the sellers attempting to break to the downside, which ends up being unsuccessful, then at least we could try and see whether we could get some buys. But right now, based on the situation of what it's looking like on the ground, I don't think it might be so wise for you to end up attempting your buying opportunities now, because definitely this region is an area where we do have sellers. You never know if they could actually end up potentially pushing the market to the downside. And if that does end up happening, it's okay. You just need to be patient. Maybe the pullback might need to end up happening during the London session, and you could find that during the US session, the market might be back in within this region and potentially could end up getting a really good buying opportunity. So just make sure that you're patient, but watch out for the red SNR. If the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us in terms of buys. So the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So Friday morning, price was here. Had pointed out that we did need to see the price come back in within here. It did come back in within this region during the London session. You can see that the market just bounced off this region to the upside, moving up quite well, broke this region to the upside. You can see the hole within there. You can even see that once the market broke to the upside, there were attempts of the sellers, to push the market to the downside. And this is what I talk about when I talk about attempts. You can visually see that the sellers were attempting to break to the downside. You can see a pin bar there, some sort of a probe, and also wicks somewhere within this region. And after that, you can see that the market did actually end up continuing to the upside quite well during the US session. So for this one, it did work out pretty well. Let's see if today we're going to be getting any more buys on this one. The levels are more or less the same. So price did move, but it's not really moved fine beyond the areas that we're watching out for. You easily could find the market reacting off here to the downside. And if that does end up happening, you could still end up getting a really good buying opportunity happening off this region right here. You can see that the buyers have pushed off here once. There was another attempt here. This was during the Asian session earlier today. You can see that the market did end up going up, but right now it's come back in within a seller's region. So you never know if those sellers could react. If they do, you could easily find the market back in within here, and you could get another buying opportunity off this area. Alternatively, what you could end up doing, or what we could end up doing, is actually wait for price to actually break above this region to the upside. If we get the market breaking and we do get the market holding, maybe something similar to this, or at least if it does at least break to the upside and we get a nice proper pullback coming in, then at least at that point in time, I'll definitely be trying to see whether I can get some buying opportunities on this one. So let's wait and see what happens. Also remember the red SNR at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but like we always say, it's better to have something and not need it rather than need something and not have it. So I don't think it really hurts to actually end up having that level there, but at least we know that's the last area where we will be calling it quits in terms of looking for buys in case the market breaks to the downside. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Friday morning price was here. Price came down, bounced off this region during the London session. Then you can see that the sellers within here did actually end up reacting. They pushed the market back down. And you can see that at around 5:30, which is during the New York Stock Exchange open, you can see that the market did actually end up bouncing off this region to the upside. And you can see how fast that buy did end up working out. You can see that during the London session, the buyers really struggled. But during the US session, look at how fast the market did actually end up going to the upside, tapped within that area. But you can see that it still did end up getting shut down, within this area right here, and the market did end up getting pushed to the downside. So for this one for today, the levels are also the same. So we're getting into some sort of a range. We can end up saying so because you can see that the market is reacting off this region at the top right here. And you can see that the buyers are reacting off this region at the bottom right here. So that being the case, the best area for you to actually end up looking for your buying opportunities right now, based on the market structure, is actually down within this region. So patience is going to be key on this one. Alternatively, what we could actually end up waiting for is to see if we can actually end up getting the price breaking above this region to the upside. If we do end up getting a breach of structure and the market actually breaks outside of that range and these sellers at the top are taken out, then at least at that point in time, we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But right now, based on the situation on the ground, this is definitely the best area to look for the buys. So you just need to be patient, but also watch out for that region at the bottom right there. In case the market finds its way there, then at least we should also be ready for that. So the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. So Friday morning price was here. We're expecting price to tap back in within here, just barely tapped this region. And you can see that the market just went to the upside, pulled back in, gave some sort of a retest within this area right here. And you can see that after that, the market did actually end up continuing to the upside. So for this one, we've adjusted the levels accordingly. If you do end up realizing of all the euro pairs that we've looked at, I think this is the only one that has switched levels. And remember also when we were watching out for, I think, the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen, and also the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar when we're doing the reviews, those ones did actually end up moving, but it's definitely something to do with the cards. Like I pointed out, it's not really much to do with the euro. So that tells you that there's a lot of weakness that's coming in on the Canadian dollar. So I guess it's the currency pair that, I guess if you do end up taking this trade, could potentially be the one that could be pushing you to the upside due to the weakness. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. Right now, in terms of looking for the buys, may not really be the best of ideas, unless maybe you got the buys down within here and you're hanging on to them and you've already managed your trade. But in terms of looking for more conservative buying opportunities, I think you're better off waiting for the market to break to the upside. If we do get a proper pullback coming back in within this region here, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. The reason why I say that is because the market is approaching or has approached a region where we do have sellers. You can see that within this area here, definitely a bunch of sellers. You can see that once the market broke to the upside, there wasn't much of a retest of the market coming back within this region right here. So there's a possibility and a high probability that if maybe we could end up getting the market maybe coming back in within here, although I don't know if that's going to happen, especially considering the fact that the Canadian dollar is showing a lot of weakness. I don't know if we'll get the market coming back in within this region, but if it does, it definitely seems that maybe we could potentially end up getting a proper buying opportunity within here. So let's just hope maybe the London big boys do actually end up reacting off this area here, and maybe during the US session, potentially end up finding the market somewhere as close as possible within this region here. So let's watch out for those two options. Of course, when it comes to trading, you always need to keep your options open. You can't really end up imposing what you want. The Forex market has a mind of its own, so we speculate to the best of our ability, but the markets generally end up doing what they want. And that's the reason why we end up having many options. Because I mean, if you only have one option, then that means that you're trying to impose your ideas on the markets. But at least it's a matter of if the market does this, then I will do this. If it does this, then I will do this. You're ready for whatever event the market does end up throwing at you. So just make sure that you also end up being a bit fluid in terms of your trading. Don't be too rigid. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions that I had pointed out, also illustrations of what to expect. Friday morning, price was somewhere within here, sort of around 9, 10, price was there. I had pointed out that we didn't need to see the market maybe come back down, hold within here for us to look for the buys. You can see that the market did a massive probe within there, but potentially did end up needing to go to a smaller time frame to possibly see the story of what was happening within here. But you can see that the market attempted to push to the upside, but the sellers also reacted quite aggressively. So for that reason, that's the reason why the levels are more or less the same. You can all see that this is a massive probe within this area here. The sellers push the market to the downside, and you can see that the market is generally holding to the downside of this area, and the sellers have already started pushing the market down. So let's see if we can either get the market breaking above that region to the upside. If it can't, then I guess we'll have to end up waiting to see whether we can get the pullback coming in within this region right here. So this generally does end up seeming like the best area to actually end up looking for the buying opportunities. So let's just hope that the market can come back in within here. If it doesn't, don't really end up looking for the buying opportunities within here. It's too risky, especially considering the fact that you hit the buy, but you definitely end up going against those sellers like immediately, and there's no point. So let's wait and see if we can get the market breaking at least above this region to the upside. If that does end up happening, then at least we can potentially try and see whether we could get some conservative buying opportunities within this region here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the market comes in within there, then at least we should also be ready for that. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs, we do have the euro against the Great British Pound. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. Can see that the buyers stepped up within this region quite aggressively. The sellers have really been struggling, but the buyers, since they showed up, have not really showed up again. But you can see that the market is coming back down, and you can see that the buyers are attempting to push the market to the upside of this region here, but it seems like the attempts to push to the upside are getting weaker and weaker, which means that maybe the buyers might actually end up needing to invite some sellers into the market before they actually do end up stepping up within this region quite again. So there's a possibility we could get the market coming back in within here. You can see that once the market broke this area to the upside quite aggressively, it never really pulled back within this region for some sort of a retest. So we potentially could be expecting that the market could actually end up doing that today. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the pullback does end up coming in a bit deeper, then potentially we could get the market coming back in within this region right here as well. So just make sure that you're ready for that. But all eyes definitely should be on this region right here. Let's just hope we can get the market coming back in within there. If it doesn't, I guess you could end up looking for maybe, let's say, some sort of aggressive entries in terms of the buys here. But you do run the risk of getting stopped out within this region, especially if you hit the buys here, because I know that some of you are real cowboys on the charts. You could easily end up hitting buys within here, but unfortunately, if you do put your stops anywhere within this region here, there is a high probability you will end up getting stopped out because the market might generally end up spiking within this area. So you're better off waiting. And there is really no point taking a trade here and having your stop loss all the way down here, and the problem is here. The risk to reward is definitely going to be off. So you're better off either waiting for price down here. If it doesn't come back in within there, then you're better off waiting for price to break above this region to the upside. If it does end up doing that, then at least on the pullback, if the market holds above here, this buy right here is much better than looking for the buys within here. And also remember that this being the euro against the Great British Pound, these are not actually very many pips. If that's 18 pips, then that means if you're hitting the buys here, you're only looking for 9 pips. To get a proper risk to reward, that means you will possibly have to end up having a stop loss of about 4 pips, which I don't really know if the broker is going to allow you to do that. So you're better off waiting for the trade here or somewhere there. You might end up getting something much, much better and more reasonable. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So I hope you guys have taken note of everything we've discussed. So we can move on to the indices and the commodities, and you can see that they're all on the buy side. So we're going to start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. We're expecting maybe price to come back in within here. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Seems that this price within here was good enough for the big boys. And you can see that they did actually end up pushing the market to the upside. And you can see that during the US session, the market really picked up a lot of steam and a lot of momentum to push to the upside. So for this one, let's see if we can get the market pulling back in somewhere within this region right here. So we've adjusted the areas accordingly. If we can get this market possibly bouncing off this region to the downside, and hopefully these sellers do actually end up pushing the market to the downside and we get some sort of a reaction from there, hopefully we potentially could end up getting some good buying opportunities within here, maybe during the US session. So let's just keep our fingers crossed and wait and see what does end up happening. If that happens, then I think that would be great. But in case these sellers don't end up reacting and the market breaks above this region to the upside, and let's say these buyers do end up coming back in, then we'll generally need to see the market break above this region quite strong. If it does, then at least we could potentially end up waiting for the pullback and we could end up attempting some buying opportunities within this region here. So just wait for those two options. But this one, a bit of a waiting game will be needed. Remember, for the indices and the commodities, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the bias is always to try see whether we can end up looking for buying opportunities. If the market breaks and holds beneath the red SNR, then at that point in time, we can try and see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the Dow Jones or the US 30. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three areas right there that we're watching out for. So Friday morning price was here. We're expecting maybe the market to give us a pullback. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And you can see that the market continued pushing to the upside. Came in within this area quite slow. But you can see that during the US session, the market really picked up a lot of momentum and broke to the upside and really rallied up quite aggressively. So for this one for today, we will also be trying to still see whether we can get some buying opportunities. But remember that that's the bias for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, which we are. So let's wait and see if we can get the market pulling back in. Once it broke this region to the upside, we didn't quite get some sort of a retest coming back in within here. And it did seem like this was quite an area of interest because you can see that the market did actually end up holding within here for, a certain point in time. So most probably when the market broke above this range to the upside, maybe there could potentially end up being some sort of a pullback and a retest, that could end up happening within here. If that does end up happening, then at least we could potentially end up trying to see whether we can get some buys there. So just make sure that you watch out for this area right here. Could find that during the London session, the market might be on the pullback phase, maybe set itself up within this area right here. Then during the US session, from around 5:30, that's when you could potentially end up getting the market really pushing to the upside. So just make sure that you do actually end up watching out for that. So the next one, this is silver. So for silver, on Friday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the three areas that I had pointed out. So Friday morning price was here. Had pointed out that maybe we could get the market attempting to come to the downside, then come back up, and hopefully we did get a hold within here. We could have looked for the buys. So the market did come down, bounced off this region to the upside, but unfortunately we just couldn't get a hold within this area right here. You can see that the sellers did end up coming back in quite again. And you can see that right now they're challenging the buyers who are sitting down within this area right here. So for this one, the story is the same. So the levels are more or less the same. We'll have to wait and see what happens. You can see that the sellers came down, the buyers reacted, the sellers started to slow down. And you can see that right now the buyers are really now starting to come back in. You can see that with this move right here, you can see the probes that are happening beneath this region to the downside, which tells us that there are definitely some buyers who are sitting within this region right here. So hopefully the market can come back in somewhere within that region, then we visually do end up seeing that the sellers are slowing down, then we potentially could end up looking for some buying opportunities. Right now, in terms of looking for the buys, it could be aggressive. Let me just say so. Reason being, you can generally see that the market has started to form some sort of a small range within here, which means that if you're hitting the buys here, you're going against these sellers who are sitting within this region here. So you're better off at least waiting to see if you can get the market back in within this region here, so that even if you do end up attempting buys, even if you're targeting all the way high up within there, if this region does end up giving you issues and the market comes up and just can't break this region to the upside, at least at that point in time, you will be managing your trade at a profit. Because if you do end up hitting the buys within here and the market comes down, you'll have to end up sustaining all this drawdown that the market will give you. And as much as maybe, let's say, you could have your stop losses down within here, but you could easily find that your trade could be playing between break even and negative, and the market is coming back in within this region. So you're better off at least looking for the trade here, so that if the market goes up, at least you will be playing with at least the market going positive and break even, as opposed to playing with negative and break even. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, if the market breaks above here, some of you are cowboys, potentially you could look for some small buying opportunities, especially if we do break above this region to the upside, but you'll definitely have to be very careful with this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember the red SNR at the bottom. Definitely right now seems like the best area to look for those buying opportunities. But in case the market does break and hold beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, the buying opportunities will be over. But the good news is that we can definitely start to look for those selling opportunities. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, on Friday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out, also an illustration of what to expect. So Friday morning price was here. We're expecting maybe the market to calm down, maybe come back up, maybe get some sort of a hold within here for us to look for the buys. But you can see that the market came up, the sellers have reacted. It's like they were really trying to challenge these buyers who are sitting somewhere within here. The buyers reacted, but unfortunately, the market and the sellers within this region were definitely giving issues, and you can see that the market came down. Maybe some small buying opportunities, but not the clearest. We definitely want to see the market make higher highs and higher lows. So this one wasn't really the best. Let's see if maybe we'll get something today. So the levels are more or less the same as what we did end up having on Friday. So you can see that the market came down, bounced off this area. It seems like the buyers within this region were needed to possibly get the market moving. Right now, you can see that the market has already started coming to the upside. But in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, not the best of ideas right now, unless you got the buys down within here. I don't really think it would be the best of ideas to just look for the buys now. So we need maybe the market to come up, maybe challenge those sellers within here. We do need to see what reaction we will end up getting. If we do get some sort of mediocre reaction, whereby we don't really get aggressive sellers coming in and the market actually holds above here, then we potentially could end up trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities off this area right here to push to the upside. So we'll definitely need to be patient. You can't quite tell whether these sellers within here could react, because that could happen. And if that does end up happening, definitely a lot of people who are looking for the buying opportunities right now are going to get stopped out. Also remember that the big boys who had looked for the buys down here, let me just call them the traders, because I know that there are also some retail traders who got their buys down within here. Most of them are potentially managing their trades and coming out of their trades within here. So if you're looking for the buy here, then that means that they're handing over their liabilities to you. Then it's up to you to figure out what to do with it. So it's like when we had the quill madness, I think back in 2017 in Kenya, everyone has quills, but the people who came in late, and then you're sold, by the guys who had come into the market earlier. So after that, you go figure out what you're going to do with them, but then they're out. So it's a similar situation. If you do end up jumping in on the buys here, they could end up handing over their liabilities to you. Then it's up to you to figure out what to do. And you could easily end up incurring a loss, because the market could potentially end up giving a pullback. So you just need to be patient. Let's see if we can get the market setting itself up properly. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. Hopefully, you guys have taken note of what the game plan is going to be looking like today. So this is what the watch list is going to be looking like. By the way, on the fundamental front, today, there isn't that much that's going to be happening, at least over and above the fact that America is getting a new president today. So you can also see that it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. So it's a holiday in the US. Maybe there could be minimal movement during the US session, but nonetheless, I mean, keep your eyes open in case things do end up starting to move. Then at least you could potentially end up getting some good moves. But you can see that generally it's going to be a quiet day. Just one Euro news event and some CHF news coming out a bit much later on. And that's pretty much it for today. It doesn't mean that the markets won't move, but if there's going to be minimal movement, then at least you should be a bit more understanding. So let's see if there are any questions on the chat box. I can see that there's been a bit of chit chat. So I see KK there, you're asking about US oil. Unfortunately, we don't look at oil anymore. It's been a while since we looked at it, but you can end up giving us suggestions. I mean, maybe if there are many guys who are also still trading oil till today, just because you're not trading it doesn't mean that you can't trade it. But of course, make sure that you do end up giving us your sentiments from time to time. Us guys are definitely open and we can definitely bring it back. So there's nothing that's cast on stone. But unfortunately, for the time being, it's not really something that we're looking at. So I see Bravin there. You're saying good morning, good to be here. Karibu sana, Bravin. Hope you're doing well and you're killing it on silver as you always do. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. Remember, if you do get any issues, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there. Also, feel free to get an MT5 account with our preferred broker. Link should be there in the video description. Definitely can get a free MT5 account. And you can see how things will definitely end up going. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember to send in your screenshots as well. Whatever trades you get, whether good or bad, us guys will definitely be happy to see what you're up to. And remember, it's not a competition. It's just embracing where you are. So we'll definitely give you the much needed shout out in case we do see something wrong and maybe something that can definitely improve on your trading. Then we definitely will give you the much needed advice. So feel free to send them in to us via WhatsApp. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. We'll see you tomorrow. So with that, happy trading, guys. And bye for now. May the peace be with you. God bless.